With everyone progressing through the early to mid stages of Wuthering Waves, doubtless many players are wondering how to build up their characters, especially in terms of echoes. While the echo system bears much resemblance to the artifact and relic systems of Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail respectively, there's an abundance of unique aspects to it, from the absence of categories to having the ability to actually use the echo's power in combat when placing it in your top slot. Character-focused guides are appearing throughout YouTube as we speak. But for the sake of convenience, I wanted to make a video covering every Resonator in Wuthering Waves as of version 1.0, briefly going over the best echo set to use on them, what main stat you want to prioritize, and most importantly who you should designate as your main echo. That way you don't have to search up videos for each individual unit, you can find them all here. Some footnotes to mention before we get started. Bear in mind that theory crafting for Wuwa is still in its infancy. We have spent quite a bit of time throughout the closed betas trying to understand the game's systems as best we can, but things are definitely subject to change as we continue to learn more, and of course as more content comes out, such as new echo sets and whatnot. With that said, I'm confident that at least for the early, mid, and late game, this video should point you in the right direction for each character. Finally, regarding substats, I know there's a lot of them and it can be difficult to find out what substats to go for because there's crit stats, attack, ultimate damage, basic or heavy attack damage, skill damage, blah blah blah. So while verbally I won't be talking substats, on screen you'll see what substats are recommended for each unit. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Let's open up with all the Electro characters first. Starting with Sephiroth, Calcharo. People have been pronouncing him as Calcharo, but based on the official voiced announcement,
Calcharo, leader of the Ghost Hounds mercenary group.
They pronounced him Calcharo, so that's how I'll be calling him. Calcharo's a very standard on-field Electro attacker, so the best echo set for him would be the complete Void Thunder, giving him solid boost in Electro damage across the board. For your main echo, you want to make use of Electro Predator, and the reason for that is, Transform echoes are not that good for units without external means of applying damage. In other words, if you use either Tempest or Thundering Mephist, you get the DPS of those echoes, but you lose the DPS of Calcharo during that time. Electro Predator is good because you can summon him while continuously attacking. For main stats, Common Echoes aka cost 1 should have attack percent. Elite Echoes aka cost 3 you want attack percent or electro damage. Either one is fine, but empirically elemental damage is of higher import. And for Overlord and Calamity, the cost 4 echoes, you want either crit rate or crit damage. Although since most people recommend not working on substats until later on, attack percent might be more efficient early game on account of crit damage being inconsistent until you get a lot of crit rate, which you won't be able to get much of through main stats alone. Next up will be Yinlin. Though she's not available until the second half of version 1, I still think it's worth including her. Just like Calcharo, Yinlin is DPS oriented, so you want to run a full Void Thunder set. But unlike Calcharo, Yinlin can afford to bring a Transform Echo into battle, and the one you want to choose is the Tempest Mephist, as in addition to being the more comfortable of the two in terms of usage, it gives heavy attack damage as opposed to ultimate damage, and Yinlin has a fantastic heavy attack especially when using her Forte circuit. Main stat distribution will be the same as Calcharo. You want attack percent for cost 1 echoes, attack percent and or electro damage for cost 3s, and crit stats for cost 4 or attack percent as placeholders until we start farming for endgame. Yinlin has functionally identical echo spreads to Calcharo with the exception of her main echo. Final Electro character will be everyone's favorite uncle, Yuanwu. Yuanwu is a tad bit different from the other two in that he does focus on dealing damage, but is more of an off-field attacker, very similar to Fischl from Genshin in concept if that makes sense. This gives you a bit more creative latitude on what echoes can work on him, in that you can go for 2 echo sets, one being Void Thunder obviously, and the other being Rejuvenating Glow. See, the Originite weapons have the ability to heal you a small amount upon reaching a certain condition. In this case, the Originite Type 4 heals you a small amount whenever using basic attacks. This can trigger the 5-piece set effect on Rejuvenating Glow to give 15% attack to all party members for half a minute, so you can go for the Rejuve set on Yuanwu just for the attack buff if you use him with the Originite Type 4. Depending on which echo set you choose, your main echo will either be the Electro Predator or the Bellborn Geochelon. Being an off-field or quick swap attacker, having a summon would be more beneficial to minimize field time, while the Bellborn gives your team a very nice boost in DPS and damage mitigation at the same time, making him a good support, especially if you use him with a rejuvenating set. Main stat-wise, attack on cost 1, attack and or electro damage on cost 3, and crit stats or attack for early game on cost 4. Your main stat targets are the same regardless of echo set. Moving into the Aero category, our first unit is General Jiyan. Once again, he's a straightforward attacker, meaning you want the full Aero set Sierra Gale on him for a massive boost in Aero damage. For the main echo, you want to go for the Euphalian Berengal, affectionately referred to as Monkey. The Monkey is a transform, but a relatively quick one, so you can whip it out and then go back to Jiyan right away. Monkey is also the only 4-cost echo for Sierra Gale, so that's about the best you can get for now. Main stat wise, you want attack on cost 1, attack or Aero damage on cost 3, and crit stats on cost 4 or attack for the early game. Jiyan's about as simple as they come, but of course that in no way diminishes his power. Second Aero unit will be Jianxin. Jianxin's a very interesting character. She's been labeled as a jack of all trades for having a mixture of damage, support, healing, and crowd control, so depending on how you play her, you'll be building her differently. That being said, I personally think she's more of a support character with a bit of damage than a DPS character with a bit of support, and so my recommendation for building her is the Rejuvenating Glow set. Jianxin can heal within her base kit, so there's no need to go for the Originite Type 4. For her main echo, you want the Bellborn to complement her overall coverage, giving a nice balance of offense and defense. As for main stats, again it comes down to what you prioritize. For cost 1, obviously attack. Cost 3, you want attack and energy instead of attack and arrow damage, and for cost 4, you can go for attack. Towards the end game, if you feel like you need less utility and just want more damage, you can go for crit stats, but Jianxin performs just fine with attack. Now, an alternative you can go for is the 5-piece Moonlit Clouds, which instead of giving attack to the entire party, gives attack to the person you switch into, and it also affords you the privilege of using the Impermanence Heron Echo, which has a more offensive-oriented buff than the Bellborn. So if you want, you can go in that direction too, but I'll stick to Rejuvenating Glow. Next character is Aalto. Aalto is another textbook attacker, so give him the Sierra Gale set. And then you want to give him a Summon Echo instead of a Transform one, so the Aero Predator is a good choice. Gun users are not very heavy attack oriented, so the monkey's heavy attack buff is kind of wasted on him anyway. Cost 1 give him attack, cost 3 give attack or arrow damage, and cost 4 give crit stats or attack for the early game. Not much else to say about him beyond that. Final Aero unit is Yangyang. She's also like Jianxin where she offers a bit of everything, making her a multi-role character. This means you can go either Rejuvenating Glow with the Originite Type 2 or Moonlit Clouds. For that matter, you want to give her the Bellborn or Heron respectively. Cost 1 go for attack, cost 3 go for attack and energy, and cost 4 go for attack. To repeat, if you want to give her some more DPS potential towards the endgame, you can go crit main stat on her, but I would save that until you reach max level and whatnot. Okay, at this point, some of you might be wondering why I'm recommending Rejuvenating Glow on so many units, even the ones that don't come with the heal. It's primarily because at the moment we don't have many buffing supports in the game yet. Until we get more supports with actual buffs for a damage dealer, Rejuvenating Glow is about the only accessible attack buff you can find, plus the buffs from Bellborn are excellent to have. As a reminder, this guide is for the early, mid to late game. I can make a follow-up episode for endgame once the player base at large makes it that far. In any case, let's continue on. Glacio units. Lingyang's a damage dealer, 5-piece Freezing Frost, and go for the Lampy Lumen Myriad Echo. Works perfectly on him. For main stats, you want attack on cost 1, attack or glacial damage on cost 3, and crit stats on cost 4 or attack for the early game. I will say though, my condolences if you got Lingyang. Early impressions of him are definitely not that great compared to the other 5 stars. What the hell is with gacha games and hating on standard banner ice type units? In Genshin we had Chixia, and Star we had Yangyang, and now in Wuwa we have Lingyang. Moving on though, next unit is Sanhua. She's also a main DPS unit, so you want to give her pretty much the same things. 5-piece Freezing Frost and the Myriad Echo for her main. Stat wise you want the usual. Attack on cost 1, attack or glacial damage on cost 3, crit stats on cost 4 or attack for the early game. If you plan to use Sanhua to support Lingyang though, you can run 5-piece Moonlit with Heron as well. Last Glacio is Baizhi, the first healer on this list. Everyone say it with me, Rejuvenating Glow. Naturally you want to give her the Bellborn. Basically every time you see Rejuvenating set, immediately just go with Bellborn. Main stat wise you want HP on cost 1, HP or energy on cost 3, and healing bonus on cost 4. Do not expect to deal any damage on this character because that's not her job at all. Moving into Havoc, we have Taoqi, best mommy. Taoqi is I believe the only unit in the game to scale up defense, but she's not really an attacker, more of a tank support. You want to go 5-piece Moonlit Clouds on her and give her the Bellborn since you can use Bellborn for either Rejuvenating or Moonlit. For main stat, go for defense on cost 1, defense or Havoc damage on cost 3, and crit stats for cost 4 or defense for early game. Taoqi is a pretty weird character building a combination of damage and defense, but overall you want to focus on her as a support. Next up is Danjin, the best girl. Danjin's an on-field attacker, so naturally give her the full Sun Sinking Eclipse Echo set for maximum Havoc damage. For her main echo, because Danjin's a constant attacker with no downtime, you want a summon not a transform, so go for the Roche Room Echo instead. Main stats go for attack on cost 1, attack for Havoc damage on cost 3, and crit stats for cost 4 or attack for the early game. I should clarify that Crownless isn't the worst on her considering she does a ton of skill damage, but it's better to allow Danjin to attack without interruption. Transitioning to Spectro, we have the MC, Rover. Some people advocate for building Rover as a damage dealer, which you certainly can, while others prefer to use him as a backup dancer. If going for DPS, Celestial Light set. If going for support, Moonlit Clouds. Main echo you want either Morning Ikes for Celestial or Heron for Moonlit. Regardless of which one, you still want to focus on damage for main stats, so attack on cost 1, attack or Spectro damage on cost 3, and crit stats on cost 4 or attack for early game. I'm personally building mine damage, but you can easily make do with either. Okay, next up's arguably the most valuable character in the game. Verina. Verina is built almost identically to Baizhi, only the former scales off attack, Rejuvenating Glow 5-piece, and the grumpy old turtle just like always, Mr. Bellborn. Then for Echo main stats, you want to go for attack on cost 1, attack and energy on cost 3, and healing bonus on cost 4. Despite scaling off attack, don't expect it to do that much damage. Don't get me wrong, she can hurt a little, but nowhere near enough to really make you consider going a DPS build on her. Last but not least, fusion characters, beginning with Encore. Encore is a damage dealer, so 5-piece Molten Rift making use of the Inferno Rider as your echo of choice. Then for main stats, you want attack on cost 1, attack or fusion damage on cost 3, and crit stats on cost 4 or attack for early game. Encore hits surprisingly hard for how cute and unimposing she is, so consider yourself fortunate if you manage to pull her. Mortefi. Mortefi is an interesting one. He's conceptually one of the few actual sub-DPS characters in the game, behaving almost like Xingqiu from Genshin in terms of follow-up attacks. Based on this, you can either go a damaging build or a support build, 5-piece Molten or Moonlit, taking the Saurian for your main echo, the big one, or the Heron if you're going Moonlit. Since Mortefi supports quote-unquote through damage, you do want to build DPS on him. Attack for cost 1, attack or fusion damage for cost 3, although if you want, you can also build energy on cost 3 until you can start getting energy via substats in the future, and then crit stats for cost 4 or attack for the early game. I personally think he's better with Moonlit, but towards the end game, he'll probably be more effective if you build him full damage. Last but certainly not least, we have Chixia. Chixia is also a fusion damage dealer, which means an easy 5-piece Molten Rift with the main echo being the Inferno Rider. In case you're wondering why Chixia can use a transform echo while Aalto can't, it's primarily due to Aalto playing a very hit-and-run playstyle, and as you know, transforms usually charge headfirst into enemies. Meanwhile, Chixia can mix and match her combos a lot more loosely if that makes sense. But if you're going to use her as a quick swap attacker, you can also just play Saurian for your main echo. Main stat wise, for the final time, attack for cost 1, attack or fusion damage for cost 3, and crit stats for cost 4 or attack for the early game. That concludes my best echo set and main echo for each unit. Really quickly, I want to elaborate a bit more on attack versus elemental damage for the cost 3 echoes. General rule of thumb, elemental damage is better for main stat over attack percent, as you can get attack percent through substats, whereas you can only get elemental damage via main stat. However, because it can be exceedingly difficult to find the right elemental damage on the right echo, that's why I say it is okay to have percent attack on your main stat for cost 3 echoes. Ultimately though, yes, you do want to have elemental damage on your main and sub DPS units. Hope you found this insightful. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments down below. I'll try to answer them as best I can. For now though, if you enjoyed the video, it would be great if you could leave a like and subscribe. Consider following me on Twitter at Varsferum, joining my Discord server, and checking out my other Wuthering Waves guide videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.